You wake up every morning with a knot in your chest, a silent reminder that the world has always felt unsafe. Even the smallest interactions, smiles from strangers, a text from a friend, a compliment from a colleague, carry a whisper of doubt. Why are they being nice? What do they want? Your mind runs on autopilot, searching for hidden motives where there might be none. Trust isn't something you give freely. It's a battlefield you step onto cautiously, always expecting betrayal, even from those closest to you. Every relationship in your life feels like a fragile balance. You want to believe people, to open up and share your vulnerabilities, but a lifetime of disappointments has taught you that exposure is dangerous. Friends fade, promises break, and even love can twist into manipulation. Each interaction is filtered through the lens of suspicion. Did they really mean that smile, or is it masking judgment? Did they call just to check in, or is it a prelude to criticism? This constant scanning, this vigilance, has become your second nature. It's exhausting. Every choice, every word, every gesture carries weight. You read between the lines before anyone has even spoken them. You analyze body language, tone, the timing of messages. Patterns emerge where none exist, and yet your mind insists they are real, pressing you to react before trust can ever take root. You've lost count of the times you misjudged someone, only to realize later that suspicion kept you from experiencing genuine connection. But even that realization doesn't change the instinct. It's a survival mechanism now, hardwired and relentless. You crave connection, yet fear it. You watch couples laugh together and wonder how they can be so unguarded, so careless with their hearts. For you, love is always conditional, always shadowed by doubt. Even when someone proves themselves trustworthy, a part of you remains skeptical, bracing for the inevitable fall. Vulnerability is a gamble you rarely take, and when you do, the anxiety doesn't fade. It simmers beneath the surface, whispering warnings, reminding you that trust is a fragile thing, easily broken. And it's not just about people. You struggle to trust your own instincts. Your memory becomes a jury, replaying past betrayals to justify your caution. Decisions that should be simple, sharing an idea, delegating a task, confiding in a friend, feel monumental because the stakes are always high. You question yourself constantly. Am I being paranoid, or is this real? Can I rely on my judgment? Your own mind feels like both ally and enemy, keeping you safe on one hand, but isolating you on the other. Even mundane events carry suspicion. You hesitate before answering calls, wary of hidden agendas. Compliments make you flinch, thinking they mask criticism. Invitations make you anxious because you can't predict the intentions behind them. Your life is a constant balance between wanting to participate, wanting to belong, and protecting yourself from inevitable disappointment. And so you navigate carefully, always measuring, always calculating, always keeping a door open for retreat. The hardest part is the loneliness that comes with distrust. You crave intimacy, friendship, even love, yet you often find yourself standing on the outside looking in. People form bonds effortlessly, share secrets, lean on one another, and you wonder why it seems impossible for you. It's not that you don't try, it's that every attempt is weighed down by caution, every gesture measured for hidden meanings. You offer pieces of yourself carefully, like fragments of glass, knowing that if they break, the shards could cut you deeply. You remember the betrayals clearly, the friend who laughed with you but whispered your secrets behind your back, the family member whose support was conditional, the partner who promised forever but disappeared at the first sign of difficulty. Each incident left a mark, an invisible scar that hardened your heart a little more. And those scars, though invisible to others, shape every decision you make. Trust isn't earned easily, it's rationed, parceled out in tiny, almost microscopic doses. Your mind is always alert, scanning for signs of deception. You notice subtleties others overlook, the slight hesitation before someone answers a question, the micro-expressions that betray true feelings, the inconsistency between words and actions. You've become an expert at reading people, almost too good. This skill, once a strength, often feels like a curse. It isolates you because while you understand human nature better than most, you struggle to fully participate in it. You see motives and agendas where others see warmth and friendship. Yet there are moments when you allow yourself to hope. When someone shows genuine care, or when kindness is extended without expectation, a flicker of relief ignites in your chest. You want to believe it, you really do. but the shadow of past experiences is always there, whispering cautions. Be careful, don't be fooled. And even in those moments of tentative trust, anxiety simmers quietly beneath the surface, waiting for a misstep, a lie, a sign that you were naive to hope. This constant vigilance wears on you. It seeps into every part of your life, influencing decisions big and small. You hesitate to invest in friendships, avoid deep conversations, and sometimes reject help even when you need it. Work relationships are strained because colleagues interpret your caution as aloofness or arrogance. Even strangers sense your guardedness, making spontaneous connections difficult. You exist in a paradox, craving connection, yet simultaneously erecting walls to protect yourself. And then there's the internal struggle. You know that life requires a degree of trust. You see others thriving, building communities, supporting one another, and you long for that, but your brain refuses to let go. Logic battles instinct constantly. You deserve trust, you deserve love, you deserve friendship, one voice whispers, while another counters, but they will betray you eventually. You cannot risk it. You carry this tension like a shadow that follows you everywhere, shaping your choices, your words, your every action. It's in the quiet moments that the weight of distrust hits hardest. When the world slows down and the noise fades, you're left alone with your thoughts, and they are relentless. You replay conversations, dissect gestures, and question intentions long after the moment has passed. Did they really care, or were they performing? Did they lie, even subtly, or are you imagining it? Sleep often brings no relief, because your mind continues its surveillance even in dreams, scanning for signs of betrayal, rehearsing possible outcomes, and calculating every interaction from the past day. Daily life feels like walking a tightrope. Every decision has consequences not just in reality, but in your perception of trust. A simple compliment from a coworker can ignite suspicion. Is this genuine, or are they trying to manipulate me? A friend checking in might spark anxiety. Are they really concerned, or are they planning to judge me behind my back? Even the most innocent gestures can feel loaded with potential betrayal. And so you navigate carefully, avoiding risks, keeping secrets, and building invisible barriers that separate you from the people around you. Family dynamics are particularly complex. You long to feel safe within your own home, yet trust there is fragile. You notice inconsistencies in words and actions, past mistakes replaying like old films, shaping the lens through which you interpret even acts of love. You question motives behind care and affection. When someone tries to help, part of you recoils. You've learned that dependence can be dangerous, that vulnerability can be exploited. And so, even those who truly care for you must constantly prove themselves, not just once, but repeatedly, to earn even a small measure of your trust. Romantic relationships are an even deeper minefield. You want intimacy, closeness, and understanding, but fear is always lurking. You analyze every text, every tone, every gesture for signs of insincerity. Arguments linger in your memory far longer than they should, and even minor misunderstandings can reinforce the belief that betrayal is inevitable. Love, in its purest form, feels almost impossible. You've learned to protect yourself by keeping emotional distance, but in doing so, you risk missing out on genuine connection. The push and pull between desire and fear becomes exhausting, shaping every choice in love and relationships. Friendships are tested in ways most people never consider. You can't accept blind trust. Loyalty is constantly under scrutiny, and even small mistakes or perceived slights can trigger suspicion. You may overanalyze intentions, sometimes seeing hidden meanings where none exist. It's exhausting, both for you and those who try to connect with you. Some people give up, unable to meet your standards of vigilance, while others cautiously remain, proving their reliability over time. Each successful bond becomes a rare treasure, but the process is slow, painstaking, and emotionally draining. The emotional toll of living this way is immense. Anxiety, hypervigilance, and occasional feelings of isolation become your constant companions. Even in social situations, you are half present, observing, calculating, and preparing for potential disappointment. Moments of joy are often muted, overshadowed by the nagging fear that something will go wrong. Happiness feels conditional, fragile, and fleeting because trust, the foundation of deep connection, is always tentative, always under scrutiny. When you look back, you realize this didn't start overnight. Distrust wasn't something you chose, it was something you learned. Somewhere in your past, trust stopped feeling safe. Maybe it was childhood, when promises were broken by the very people who were supposed to protect you. Maybe you learned early that words didn't always match actions, that love could be unpredictable, conditional, or withdrawn without warning. As a child, you adapted the only way you knew how, by staying alert, by watching closely, by learning not to rely too much on anyone. What once protected you slowly became a permanent way of seeing the world. You remember moments when you trusted freely before caution became instinct. There was a time when you believed what people said, when you didn't need proof for every promise. But those memories feel distant now, almost unreal. Experience taught you otherwise. It taught you that disappointment hurts less when you expect it, that betrayal stings less when you see it coming. Over time, distrust became armor, heavy, restrictive, but protective. You learned to wear it everywhere, even in places where it wasn't needed. Your brain adapted in ways you didn't consciously notice. Hypervigilance became normal. You started scanning environments for emotional threats, not just physical ones. Tone shifts, body language, pauses in conversation. Your mind records everything. It's exhausting, but it feels necessary. You tell yourself that this is intelligence, awareness, emotional maturity, and sometimes it is. But often, it's fear disguised as wisdom. Fear that if you let your guard down, even for a moment, history will repeat itself. You also learn to become independent, almost to a fault. Asking for help feels uncomfortable, even humiliating. Relying on others feels risky. You prefer to carry everything yourself, your problems, your emotions, your responsibilities, because depending on someone means giving them power. Power to disappoint you, power to leave, power to hurt you. So you tell yourself you're strong, self-sufficient, resilient, and you are. But beneath that strength is exhaustion, the quiet weight of always being alone with your burdens. Sometimes you wonder who you could have been if trust had come easier to you. Would you have taken more risks, loved more deeply, spoken more freely? You imagine a version of yourself that doesn't hesitate before opening up, that doesn't question kindness, that doesn't feel the need to protect themselves from everyone. That version feels lighter, freer, but it also feels dangerous. Because you've learned that freedom without caution can lead to pain, and pain is something you refuse to experience again at the same intensity. Yet deep down there's conflict. You know distrust isn't neutral. You know it costs you something. It costs you closeness, warmth, spontaneity. It costs you moments of genuine connection that require vulnerability. You see how your walls sometimes push people away, even those who mean well. You see how your silence can be misunderstood, how your caution can feel like rejection to others. And still, tearing those walls down feels terrifying, because once they're gone, you're exposed. And exposure is something your nervous system associates with danger. So you live in this in-between space, not fully closed, but never fully open. You give people pieces of yourself, carefully selected, carefully controlled. You allow connection, but only to a point. And when things feel too close, too intimate, you pull back, not because you don't care, but because you care too much. Because closeness means risk, and risk feels unbearable when you've already been burned before. At some point, you start noticing the cost of living this way. Not all at once, not dramatically, but in small, quiet moments that accumulate over time. You notice it when conversations stay shallow because you don't know how to go deeper without feeling exposed. You notice it when people stop confiding in you, sensing your distance even when you care deeply. You notice it when opportunities pass you by, not because you weren't capable, but because trust was required and trust felt too risky. Slowly, subtly. Distrust begins shaping the life you live more than the life you want. There are moments when your defenses crack, usually when exhaustion outweighs fear, when you're too tired to analyze, too drained to calculate outcomes. In those moments, you let something real slip out, a feeling, a truth, a vulnerability. And sometimes nothing bad happens. Sometimes the world doesn't punish you for opening up. Sometimes you're met with understanding instead of judgment, patience instead of betrayal. These moments confuse you more than anything else because they challenge the story you've been telling yourself for years. They suggest that maybe not everyone is dangerous. Maybe not every open door leads to loss. But the relief is temporary. Almost immediately, your mind steps in to regain control. You tell yourself it was luck, an exception, a rare case. You warn yourself not to repeat the mistake of letting your guard down, because hope is dangerous when you've been disappointed before. Hope invites expectation, and expectation makes the fall harder. And yet, those small moments linger. They stay with you longer than you expect, quietly reshaping your internal narrative even as you resist the change. You begin to realize that distrust isn't just about other people, it's about control. When you don't trust, you feel prepared. You feel ahead of the pain, you feel like nothing can surprise you, but control comes at a price. It limits joy, it restricts connection, it keeps life predictable but also empty in places. You start questioning whether being safe is worth being alone, whether protecting yourself completely is worth never being fully seen. These questions don't come with easy answers, but once they appear, they don't go away. You also start seeing how distrust shapes the way you see yourself. You measure your worth through self-reliance, through emotional distance, through how little you need others. But there's a quiet ache beneath that identity, a desire to be held, understood, supported without suspicion. You don't want to be strong all the time. You don't want to carry everything alone. But wanting those things feels like weakness, like inviting pain. And so you deny those needs, even as they quietly persist. There are moments when you wonder if healing means losing your edge, if learning to trust means becoming naive, vulnerable, exposed. You fear that opening up will erase the lessons you learned through pain. But deep down, you know that healing isn't about forgetting. It's about choosing differently. It's about learning when caution is necessary and when it's holding you back. That realization doesn't change you overnight, but it plants a seed. A small shift in awareness that begins to soften the rigidity of your defenses. You don't suddenly start trusting everyone. You don't wake up fearless. Healing for you is quieter than that. It looks like pausing before assuming the worst. It looks like allowing someone to prove themselves instead of prejudging them. It looks like noticing when your fear is speaking louder than reality. These changes are subtle, almost invisible, but they matter because they represent choice. And for the first time in a long while, you begin to feel like distrust doesn't completely control you. Eventually, you reach a moment where fear and exhaustion collide. Not in a dramatic breakdown, but in a quiet realization that living this guarded has slowly drained you. You notice how often you feel disconnected even when surrounded by people. How conversations feel scripted, rehearsed, controlled. How you rarely feel truly known because being known requires trust. And that realization hurts more than betrayal ever did, because betrayal is an event. This loneliness feels permanent. You start understanding that distrust has been protecting you from pain, but it has also been protecting you from love, from safety, from being fully alive. You see that your walls didn't just keep bad people out, they kept everyone out. The ones who would have stayed, the ones who would have chosen you without manipulation, the ones who were patient enough to earn your trust, but never got the chance because you were already bracing for the ending before the story even began. There's grief in that realization, grief for the relationships that never deepened, for the words you never said, for the vulnerability you swallowed back because it felt unsafe. You mourn a version of your life that might have existed if fear hadn't been in control, and that grief is heavy because it forces you to face a truth you've avoided for years. Distrust didn't just happen to you, it shaped you. But this time, instead of turning that truth into another reason to retreat, you sit with it. You let it exist without immediately building defenses around it. You realize that trust isn't about certainty. It never was. It's about risk. It's about choosing connection even when there are no guarantees. And that terrifies you. But for the first time, terror feels honest instead of paralyzing. You begin to see that trusting doesn't mean ignoring red flags. It doesn't mean excusing harm or abandoning boundaries. It means allowing people the chance to show who they are instead of punishing them for someone else's mistakes. It means understanding that not every hurt can be prevented, but not every hurt is worth avoiding connection altogether. This distinction changes something inside you. Slowly, quietly, you don't transform overnight. You still hesitate, you still analyze. You still feel the urge to pull away when things get too close, but now there's awareness, and awareness gives you choice. You start noticing when fear is driving your reactions instead of reality. You start catching yourself before assuming betrayal. Sometimes you still retreat, but sometimes you stay. And staying feels unfamiliar, vulnerable, and strangely relieving all at once. You begin to allow yourself small risks, sharing one honest thought, letting someone see you on a bad day, accepting help without immediately preparing for disappointment. These moments don't fix everything, but they soften you. They remind you that trust isn't a switch, it's a practice, one that requires patience, boundaries, and courage. You stop seeing trust as weakness and start seeing it as resilience, because it takes strength to open up after being hurt. It takes courage to believe again without erasing the past. You learn that protecting yourself doesn't have to mean isolating yourself, that you can be cautious and open, guarded and human. And maybe the most important realization of all is this: your inability to trust was never a flaw, it was a response, a learned survival strategy, one that kept you safe when you needed it. But now, you're learning that survival isn't the same as living, and little by little, you choose living. You may never trust easily, you may always feel a pause before opening up. But now that pause isn't ruled by fear alone, it's guided by awareness, boundaries, and self-respect. And for the first time, trust doesn't feel like something that will destroy you. It feels like something that might finally set you free.